Hi everyone and welcome back to our another session. I'm Triptisana from Tech Jobs Fair and I'll be your host for today's session. So today we have a very special guest with me, Miss Nikki Wheeldon. She is an 2x exerted founder with a unique career path, having started off as a professional actress and vocalist. Combining her skills on stage with her business experience, Nikki now works as a speaker, coach, and a mentor. So let's welcome her. Hi, Nikki. How are you doing today?
Hello, yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And so we're very excited to get some insights from you, and we're looking forward to this session. Yes. So guys, before we talk about the topic, which is you know how to make the most of every pitch, presentation, or speaking opportunity, I would like to ask Nikki to, tell us a little more about yourself and your
Mhm.
journey so far.
Yeah, of course. So I have had quite a unique journey, although I do feel as though a lot of people tend to say that. I initially started my working career as an actor. So I went to drama school, I trained in musical theatre and did singing and dancing and acting. And then I went into that business for a while. I had an agent and worked in that business for a few years until I realised it wasn't really conducive with having a family and any stability. And in between the acting jobs, I was often doing. I had lots of different businesses that I tried. I tried all sorts of different kind of side hustles and things like that. And I found that I learned a lot about business by being in the background of other people's businesses.
Mhm.
So over that time, some businesses I had worked well, some didn't. I had a tech startup which epically failed, but I always say that I really think that you have to have the failures so that you can have the successes. And the amount I learned from that really propelled me into the next business. And that one actually turned out to be probably one of the most successful ones that I had. So in 2020, I had a small e-commerce business that I sold. And then just last year, I sold my consultancy, which I'd had over about 7 years. And so now my main focus is working as a speaker coach. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. And I really like it because it's allowing me to mix my business experience and my on-stage experience and all of the stuff that I learned about the voice and how to use the breath and how to physically be on a stage as well as in front of a camera, and to work with people on that, whether it's for pitches or presentations or big speaking opportunities. They're all equally as important.
Yeah, so somehow what you started as of is related to, what you're doing right now, right? So
Yeah, it feels a bit full circle at the moment. Like I'm finding a way to combine all of that, which I didn't think that I actually would. So it's nice. I'm really enjoying it.
yeah, probably you were preparing yourself to come here, and become a speaker at like some point of the time. And
Yeah,
that's really, really amazing. And it's quite a different journey that I've heard of, from actor switch to speaker. So yeah,
yeah,
something very new and unique.
yeah. I think so. But I think all these things are intentional. You know, you don't know it at the time, but it all makes sense as life goes
Yeah.
by.
So tell us a little more about your career journey. How you were saying that you've switched from a art career to a speaking professional, where now you work as a mentor coach, right? So that switch and that journey of switching from one field to another, especially. So can you tell us a little more about yourself, like that journey and that switch, and what inspired you to make that switch?
Yeah, I think I didn't see a connection for a long time. And then a lot of my friends who were actors who've gone into business are doing very well. And that's partly because of their communication skills. And as an actor, firstly, you do a lot of training in how to use your voice, how to communicate, but you also learn a lot about people and how people communicate. And you also spend a lot of time out of your comfort zone doing things that make you feel really uncomfortable, or playing a different character, or being thrust on a stage and having to be on stage under quite a lot of pressure in front of a lot of different people, or if you're doing TV and film, doing takes and things like that, when you've got a lot of people in that studio watching you, it's a lot of pressure. I didn't used to see the link. And then as I've kind of gone through my career, I've seen a lot of those friends who moved from one to the other have actually been able to really use those skills, or often even people who are good communicators. It turns out they did drama when they were younger, or and I think that's because there's a lot of those skills that are transferable. And I'm now really starting to see how I can utilize that. So it wasn't an obvious switch at all until, about a year and a half ago, when I started doing the speaker coaching. And I found that I kind of stumbled into it. I was given an opportunity to try it and found, hold on, it unlocked so many memories of things I'd been learning at drama school and I'd used when I was on stage and when I was working professionally, that I thought, this is something I really want to use more. And the more I've then done that, the more I've found, I think, things that are quite unique that I can bring to that. And I've been working with all sorts of different people, because people think with public speaking, it's about standing on a stage and delivering to people at a conference or something like that, which of course I do. I enjoy that. That's great. But for a lot of people, it's going into an interview. It's just doing a presentation, presenting some slides to your colleagues. It's doing maybe it's pitching for work, or it's all sorts of things that may seem smaller, but are very, very important. And actually, there's a lot you can learn about how to communicate better and more effectively. That's not just the big stage moments. And then also there's a lot that you can take into those moments as well.
Yeah, so that's really nice. And so now, talking about the topic of our today's conversation, which is how to make the most of every pitch, presentation, or speaking opportunity. So I want to ask one question, like, why is it so important to make these type of speaking opportunities and presentation, and not just get through it?
Yeah, I think this is a big mistake for a lot of people, is that they accept an opportunity to do something, or they're sometimes forced into it. Your boss says, right, you're going to go and do this presentation, and you're thinking, wait, no, oh gosh, I'm going to have to just do it. And they focus on just getting through it, which of course there is a point where that is all you can do, is you can just focus on getting up there, saying what you need to say, and getting out the door without anything going wrong. Great. But I think it's really important to make sure that you're making the most of those opportunities, and that you're, making sure you are being open to doing them. Because any kind of speaking opportunity, any type of opportunity to share, to get up in front of people, can have huge benefits. And it might be career advancement. It might be that there's opportunities for promotion, or that you're seen as someone who they might consider you for promotion because you're up and you're speaking, and they're thinking, oh, okay, hold on, this person knows what they're doing. They look like a leader up there. And it might be things like that. It might be the fact that you, by getting up there and talking about whatever you're talking about, you get noticed. So it could be good for personal brand. It could be good for visibility. And sometimes that's as well. I sometimes work with people who are looking to do more videos on LinkedIn or on their social media, and they're scared to just go and do it. And that type of stuff is brilliant for personal brand and for visibility, which we know has a knock-on effect in many, many ways. And that can be very important. And then I think also making sure that the content that you're talking about is actually landing. So you're up there for a reason. So whatever it is you're doing, whether it be a pitch or a presentation, whether you're up on a stage, you are there for a reason, and you're delivering content for a reason. And so you want it to land, and anything you can do to make sure that you really are connecting with the people that are talking, that are listening, and connecting and getting that information across is good. That's what we want, is to not just get up and communicate, but communicate effectively. And I think that's the difference. That's where it's not just about getting up there, getting through it. Yes, I've done it right, I'm off. Once you get past the point where you feel like you can get to this, is then looking at, okay, how can I make sure I've done that effectively and efficiently, and got that content across in a way that people are going to remember me, and it's going to stick and it's going to land.
So, like, when we talk about presentation or presenting your presentation, I've seen people who are very good at making presentations, right? Like, creating the content and, making it visually nice and everything. But when it comes to speaking, or when it comes to presenting, right, that public
Yeah.
speaking, they just go down. Like, they're so underconfident, and then everything becomes numb for them. So how can you make it easier for those people, who are good at making presentation, but they go down when it comes to presenting it in front of people and public speaking?
I think there's lots of different things you can do. I work with a lot of people like this, particularly in tech. I work with a lot of people in tech who are very good at the tech, but happen to find themselves in a position where they need to present that, or they need to manage a team, or they need to do the speaking bit, and actually they're much more comfortable doing the building, or being in that slightly different role. And it's exactly the same, as what you've said just there. I think so there can be people who are brilliant at making all the slides and they look great, but actually when they come to presenting them, they just fall apart. And I think a lot of that can be to do with pressure and putting a lot of pressure on yourself. It can be to do with nerves, which I know we'll maybe can talk about in a little bit, and just firstly taking that pressure off and understanding that probably better than anyone in the room what it is that you are talking about.
Yeah.
And also, only you know what you're planning to say. So if you go completely off piece and it goes wrong, 9 times out of 10, the audience or the people who are watching your presentation have no idea. And also, you're human, right? So if something goes wrong, or, I had worked with a guy and he had this joke planned into his speech, this huge speech, and it was in Barcelona, so it's supposed to be nice and sunny. And he had a joke about the weather and how lovely it was to be in the sun. And at that moment, there was a huge storm outside. It was absolutely tipping it down. And I could tell he was panicking, thinking, gosh, the joke's not going to land. What am I going to do? But he just relaxed and kind of made a slightly different joke and was honest about the fact that it was supposed to be sunny and look at the weather. And everybody laughed, everybody relaxed. And I think it's about trusting your content. So making content that you know about, that you're confident, working with, and practicing and making sure that you've had a chance to run that. And a lot of the time it's stuff that you really do know. So it's confidence, and it's having confidence in your content. And when people are creating their content, I think it's having that in mind. So not overstretching yourself, not having, oh, right, I'm going to memorize 20 different facts and figures, when that's unlikely if you're a little bit nervous to be as possible. Don't make it harder for yourself by making the content too hard. And then just really taking that moment before you speak to just trust that you know what you're talking about and that you can do this, and then just letting it go and just seeing what happens and trying not to put too much pressure on it will really, really help for a lot of people.
So staying calm and then knowing what you're talking about is going to be helpful, right? But like you said, practice and all that. So how can these people come up with speaking opportunities? Like, not just let's not just talk about presenting a presentation, but in general, when it comes to even having a communication with someone in a workshop, at a conference, like, they have a lot of things to talk about, but then that initiation, that start, some people can't do that. So how can they find those speaking opportunities, and or how can they work on that, their speaking skills in general?
I think you have to learn to be comfortable in discomfort. So if you're at a networking event, for example, and you see somebody who you really want to speak to, you have to just kind of lean into that feeling of awkwardness and that feeling of discomfort. Because if you don't push through that, you're never going to be able to kind of grow and get to the next step. So with speaking opportunities, with things like that, the best thing you can do is to just apply for them. And that sounds so silly because it seems really obvious, but so many people will talk themselves out of it. Oh, they wouldn't want me to speak. They wouldn't want to hear what I've got to say, which you don't know that unless you just apply. The worst that will happen is that they'll say, no, thank you. And then, cool, come up with a different topic, try again the next year. Or if there's an opportunity to speak at work and they're looking for someone to do a presentation, yes, it might make you feel a bit uncomfortable, but if you don't try, it's never going to get easier. And people will often say, how can I make it easier? And I think it's partly to do with the prep and making sure you're preparing and you're practicing and you're giving yourself time to prepare in that way. And the rest of it is to do with just leaping in and really giving yourself a chance to try these things, because the more you do them, the easier it gets. So what I sometimes say to people if they're thinking about wanting to do, for example, big public speaking gigs and paid gigs and things like that, is to start small. So it may be that you're a member of a sports club or a parent and you're in the PTA, volunteering for opportunities to stand up and speak, doing a speech and not shying away from them. Instead, lean into it and be like, I know this is going to make me feel uncomfortable. I know I'm not going to love this feeling, but it will get easier the more you do it. Because the more you do it, you'll see that often things do go right and it goes well and people are really happy with what you've said and you make new connections from it. But unless you try, you'll never know. So I really feel very strongly about people leaning into that discomfort and understanding that it's not going to be easy, but you need to find these ways to find these speaking opportunities. And it's not just the obvious. There's the public speaking, obviously, like we've said, there's pitches, there's presentations, but also going on podcasts, doing lives like this, doing lives and videos on your own social media, just hitting record and talking and putting it up on your stories on Instagram. Little moments like that, every time you do it, it'll get easier and easier to do it again. And then those things start to feed into others. So I think, in short, it's partly about going and actually finding the opportunities and applying for them, whether that be conferences or whether it be things at work or all sorts of things. And it's also about maybe just being a little bit kind to yourself and starting off with some smaller ones and trying to find perhaps some little local opportunities, or, go to a networking event. And maybe it's one where you have to stand up and pitch for 60 seconds before, and everybody in the room is going to pitch. It's just 60 seconds. It's a good place to start. And then from there, you'll be able to feed into finding different opportunities, I think. And it gets a lot easier after that.
Yeah. So when we talk about practicing, right? So I've heard and seen people especially practicing for public speaking. They usually stand in front of mirror and then they're talking to themselves. But even after that, when it comes to speaking in front of audience, a lot of people, right? When we talk a lot of people, how can they generate that confidence that they lack? Now they know for a fact that I need to be confident in order to talk, but from where to generate that confidence?
So I think it's exactly what we've been saying there about the confidence comes from doing it and things not going catastrophically wrong, which it won't. It is so unlikely, that something will go so wrong. It's incredibly unlikely that you will completely freeze and not be able to say a word. This is what people really panic about. And it's so unlikely, it's so rare that would actually happen. So if you do it and it goes okay, then that confidence kind of starts to sprout. It's like a little seed and it starts to sprout. And then it can grow from there. And I think the more you start to then do those things, the better it grows. But also what I was saying about the prep side, I think is a huge part of the fact that it goes well. So I'm a huge fan of people practicing. Probably 70% of the work I do with speakers is prep sessions where they've got something coming up. They book me and we just go over it. They stand up, they run it, they see what they want to do with their body, and we just see what happens, and I give a bit of feedback. It's not practicing it until, it's kind of overworked and it doesn't feel alive anymore. It's still got to feel fresh. So it's just running it a little bit and making sure you're confident with what you're going to say and what slide comes next, and making sure that what's next rather than the slide reminding you what's next, little things like that, so you feel confident with what's happening when. And also I think that confidence comes from the practical prep. So little things like, if it's an online session, do you know where the link is? We're using StreamYard, for example. Do you know where that is? Do you know how to get on there? Have you turned all your notifications off? You know, are you in a space where you're not going to get interrupted? And with a physical event, you know, do you know where you're going? Have you factored in plenty of time to get there? Once you get to the event, do you know who you speak to? Are you going to have a mic? Are you going to be mic'd or have a handheld? Do you know where to go on the stage and off? All of this stuff, this prep, can help you not be kind of thrown before you're even up there. And I think that all ties in with that confidence, because once you've done that and it's all gone okay, you start to think, well, I think I could do that again, actually, and that wasn't so bad. And then the next time happens, and it gradually gets easier. So the confidence is a huge part, but there's no kind of quick fix with confidence. I think that you have to allow yourself to work at it slowly and be kind to yourself, and you'll see that it gradually starts to build.
That's interesting. So, does scripts like really help people when it comes to practicing? Like, because sometimes they go over scripts so much, and at the time of presenting, they forget it because they've mugged up, they've learned it
Yeah.
by heart. And at the time of, they forget their one word and the whole script is gone.
Oh, yeah, it can be a real nightmare. So my view on scripts is, if you need it, use it initially. What can be quite useful is to write down everything you want to say. So maybe at first you have a script, but to then get rid of it as quick as possible. And this comes from my acting background. So when you're learning lines, you need to get rid of that script, because if it's in your hand, it becomes like a safety blanket, and you kind of you're almost not testing yourself as to whether you know them. And the sooner you can put that down, the better, because then you're having to rely on whether or not you know it. So I will sometimes say to clients, have a script if you want, write it all out, maybe practice it once with the script, but then it's gone. That script is out of there. And I think it's really, really important for people to, again, be uncomfortable with the fact that, oh no, I need the script. I want it in my hands. You don't need it, because exactly what you said can happen. You can have a script and you can learn it word for word. You get up there and something happens. Halfway through your session, there's a quick power cut, or your slides go wrong, and it completely throws you. You lose where you are in the script. And then you have to kind of go back to the previous paragraph and repeat that paragraph. And then it looks very clear that it's scripted. And it can be very difficult with scripts, because even though you've written it, it can end up sounding like somebody else, because you've written it in a slightly different way to how you would just naturally speak. So I think there is a place for a script, but then I am very keen on people getting rid of that as quick as they can, once they've and because then you're relying on your brain to remember what you need to say. So it's okay for a bit.
Also, when you're like so much focused on remembering the script, it comes on your face too.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a huge fan of speakers being themselves. I hate seeing someone get up and speak, and then they come off the stage and you go to speak to them and they're a completely different person, because you should be able to be you up there and speak as you. So anything you can do to make that as natural as possible also means that your audience, or the people that are watching or listening or whatever it is you're doing, are more likely to feel like you're genuine. They're going to connect with your content more, because they can see you're a real person. So if you stumble some words, cool. It doesn't matter. If little things go wrong, it's absolutely fine. Everybody's going to forgive you, because we're all human. And actually that makes you more real. So, you can have the prompts, you can have things like that if you need them. But I think it's much better to get rid of that safety blanket and just to have the confidence that you know what you're doing without it.
I just have one last question for you. Like, how to, tackle the nerves before any event or anything? How do we tackle them?
This is a huge one. And nerves is so tricky, because the nervous reaction is all to do with fight and flight, or fight, freeze, and flight. So when you're nervous, your brain thinks you're in danger. So you're stood at the side of the stage, you're waiting to go on, and your brain can't tell the difference between a bear coming in the room and thinking that you're going to be attacked and you having to step on that stage. It just feels the same panic and fear. and it can't differentiate between what is life-threatening and what is just feels scary. And it can feel the same. It can be very, very scary and nerve-wracking. The best thing you can do is to try and learn to center your breath, basically, which sounds maybe more complicated than it is. But what I recommend is make sure you have time before you speak, before you present, before you do anything. Even today, before you hit the button, there's a countdown, 30 seconds, and I could feel my chest starting to, I'm breathing up here in my chest, short, shallow breaths, which isn't what you need, because in order to remember what you want to say, you need as much oxygen flowing around your body. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing short, shallow breaths, you're not getting as much oxygen to your brain, and therefore you're more likely to forget what to say, or to get panicked, or to not be focused because your body's thinking, you need to run, you're not safe, run away. And you can control that by essentially controlling your breath, which in turn helps your body just relax. So just taking some deep breaths, and there's a technique that I teach, which is to do with centering that breath that you can practice to help you in those moments. But it's essentially about trying to reprogram your brain in that moment to chill out and know that you're safe, you're not in any danger. And having that moment, I think, just before you go on stage, or just before you do your presentation, or just before whatever, to just breathe and remember that you're okay and that you're safe. And then, going and speaking. And even when somebody first introduces you, before you start to speak, just having a second to just, okay, and then start speaking will make a huge difference with nerves. And again, really just doing it more, feeling that discomfort, doing it more, the nerves will start to ease. But it's quite a natural reaction, especially in the big crowds, or, if you're going on a radio show and there's a lot of people listening, it can start to get in your head. And I think you just have to take that moment to just chill and reset before you start to speak. It'll give you a better chance of it going well.
So that breather is a must.
It's huge. Yeah. Just taking whatever that means to you, just taking that moment to just calm and then going.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It was a wonderful session. I think it's been really helpful for people, who are trying to come up and, develop their speaking skills, especially public speaking. And thank you so much for your valuable time. Yeah. And do you want to say anything before we end the session? Anything from your end to our audience?
No, I think I just really encourage people to try and find some opportunities. And I love hearing from people who have gone and done that. So if you do feel a little bit empowered today and you think, I'm actually going to go and put my hand up and say, I'll do this, or if you've got a presentation or something coming up, I'd love to hear from you to see how it goes. And I'm always really keen to hear how people get on, and whether they come across anything that, they think, oh, that didn't really, how do I do this? So just to connect with me really, and to get in touch.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you are finding a opportunity, the speaking opportunity we've been talking about in the session, we have our Tech Jobs Fair coming up. Yes, the next is in London in the March, and there are a few more lined up. So you can always go to techjobsfair.com and check out the events and enroll yourselves. If you're job seekers, it's free for you. So just go check the website and you can register yourself. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Until next time, take care and bye-bye. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.